Thank you all for joining today, and welcome to the webinar on how artificial intelligence can give your sales team an unfair advantage. A couple of housekeeping items. We will be taking questions at the end, so please, anytime you want throughout the webinar, type in your questions in the chat window. And secondly, we will be recording this, so you'll receive a link to this recording. So in this webinar today, we're going to cover a couple things. We're going to start with AI trends in general, a really quick crash course on artificial intelligence, and why it's becoming so important specifically to the sales organization today. And then we'll follow with how companies are using artificial intelligence to make their sales teams more effective with some specific examples. So I'd like to start by introducing our speakers today. Dr. Anil Kaul is our CEO and co-founder. He has 25 years experience in the analytics space with pedigree from McKinsey and a PhD from Cornell University. He is an avid hiker and is training for a marathon. Rajat Naring is our Associate Director of Absolute Data Labs. He's one of the key architects behind our Navic AI platform, and he has over 13 years experience in the space. He's worked extensively with our machine learning algorithms and newer advanced analytics techniques. He has a master's from the Indian Institute of Technology, which is one of the elite academic institutions in India. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Rajat to get started.
Thanks, Sandra, and hello, everyone. So the world has seen major technological innovations in the last few decades, and each one of them has significantly enhanced our lives. PCs, or personal computers, marked a major milestone in the history of technological innovation. It brought the computing power, which was still available only to enterprises in every household. A dream that Bill Gates saw in 1980s was now a reality. From desktops to laptops, today we can't imagine a day without using our computers. With the advent of internet, world of information and communication was revolutionized. Information was no longer restricted only to universities or libraries, but rather it was possible to get any information at any time and from any place just by Googling that information. Internet also changed the way we communicate, right from ordering a pizza to buying a television or sharing a moment with a friend by sending pictures over instant messaging. The world has never been so connected before. And then came smartphones, which transformed our lives at an accelerated pace. If PCs brought the computing power to every household, smartphones brought to each and every individual. It changed the way we access information and interact with the digital world. The common theme around these major technological innovations is that they became revolutionary when the technology was accessible by the masses and not just limited to a selected few. Is artificial intelligence in the same league? We certainly believe so, and it's already transforming the world. Personal assistants on our smartphones is a great example of that. Today's personal assistants know who you are, what you need, and when you need it. It proactively tells information exactly when you need that information, whether it's time to leave for your office or it's the flight details of the flight that you have to board the next day. It provides all the information at your fingertips. Self-driving cars is a great example of that. It may not be a commodity right now, but it's not a science fiction either. Google and Uber have tested self-driving cars, and they are successful, and it soon will become a norm. Talking about successful testing, Amazon or Domino's have all successfully delivered their packages through AI-powered drones. Interestingly, the time difference between learning to drive and learning to fly has been much less for AI than for humans. But before I go any further, let me take a step back and talk a little bit about what exactly AI means or artificial intelligence means. There are various definitions that are going around in the world these days, but the popular image that comes to mind is of a science fiction movie like iRobo or a Matrix, an image where a robo is interacting with humans and helping humans. But the way we would like to define artificial intelligence is the mechanism that allows machines to replicate what humans can do. And that, we believe, is a three-step process of sense, comprehend, and act. Today's machines can sense and perceive the world around them through image processing and audio processing. It can not only see, but also understand what it means, which is it can comprehend the information thrown at them, and eventually it can take action based on that information. When we think about action, it has two parts to it. The first is deciding what action to take, and the second is the ability to execute on that particular decision. Today's machines can do both. And when the sense, comprehend, and act come together, they form a comprehensive AI system, and there are various AI applications that display these abilities to various degrees. But there are a few applications which personify each one of them. For example, the facial recognition system by Facebook called DeepFace. It's a great example of sense. It can identify human faces in a digital image, identify who's who, and tag them with a great 97% accuracy. Siri is a great example of comprehend. It can understand what the user is saying or asking. It can understand the context in which it is being asked and combine these two to provide the right information to the user that it's asking for. Netflix recommendation engine is a great example of ACT. It can understand the preferences of the user, let's say the likes and dislikes of a particular of movies, club those preferences with the preferences of other similar users, and combine all of this information together to recommend newer movies to the users that they are more likely to like. And no talk on artificial intelligence is complete without machine learning. Machine learning, in a way, is the brain or the learning system of AI. The way we like to define machine learning is it automates analytical model building. The key thing here is automation of analytical model building, which is very different from the statistical way of modeling. In the statistical world, a modeler would define how each of the predictors is impacting the target variable, the interactions between predictors, or the model parameters and decision boundaries, etc. That's not the case in a machine learning based system where the mathematical forms of the predictors or the interaction between predictors, all of that is defined by the system itself. The second characteristic of machine learning is its self-learning abilities. It can take new data and improve the model results over time, thus increasing the effectiveness of the model. and reducing the need of refreshing the model. Supervised learning, unsupervised learning, or semi-supervised learning are the three different types of machine learning, and the two most used forms or techniques of machine learning are neural networks and deep learning. But why is artificial intelligence becoming so popular? We believe there are three big reasons why artificial intelligence is so popular. The first one is its ability to take care of huge amounts of data. It can provide insights from a huge vast amount of data and separate signals from noise. It can process both structured as well as unstructured data and provide guidance and insights to the business user. The second reason is around self-learning capabilities, where it learns from its past mistakes and ensures it does not repeat them. It understands the changing nature of the data, the people that are generating those data, and able to tune the model based on that newer information and keep predicting at higher levels. The third big reason is its ability to deal with lower event rates. It can deal with it in a much better way than traditional techniques. For example, a machine failure prediction is an extremely rare event, but for an organization, it's extremely critical to know when a machine is going to fail so that it can take preventive action before the machine actually fails. So that's actually pretty good, three reasons for us to, go for AI. And the great thing is that things that are needed for AI are already in place. We are capturing so much data these days, right from clicking on a website to the steps we take on the road. Everything is getting captured. And with software and hardware advances, there is a lot of processing of this data which is now possible. And with cloud computing, this processing power is not limited to enterprises, but is available to each and every individual. And that's what makes AI into the day-to-day lives of every individual. And if individuals can use it, so can different industries. So give a few examples. Agriculture is a great example of using artificial intelligence, where farmers can nowadays, just with the image of their crop, detect whether the crop is infected with a disease or not. They plant sensors in their fields and utilize that sensor data to get actionable recommendations on how to increase the yield. In the healthcare industry, artificial intelligence is helping doctors in hard-to-diagnose diseases like cancer. It's making the diagnosis more accurate and more scalable. And it's also assisting doctors in surgeries. If artificial intelligence can assist the doctors in surgeries, it certainly can help in the manufacturing industry through intelligent factories. Intelligent factories is a concept where different departments of a manufacturing unit are linked together, sharing the data with each other to form highly integrated and intelligent creation engines. This kind of a factory has a lot more flexibility to the changing business requirements, lowers the cost of operations, and has higher quality of output. Artificial intelligence is also applied across various organizational functions. For example, in logistics, Amazon has warehouses these days that are completely automated. Right from receiving the orders to finding the right SKU in the warehouse to packaging it and finally sending it to delivery, all of that is automated through AI-powered systems. It's also improving the customer experience by, for customer service agents. It's able to proactively identify a potential issue that a customer might be facing and finds the right solution for that issue and lets the customer service agent call that particular customer before even the customer has realized that there is going to be a problem. And so is the marketing team, where they are getting a huge support through AI-based systems. They are personalizing their entire communication chain for their customers and prospects through AI. AI is also suggesting campaigns that marketing teams should be running to achieve their business goals. So if these functions and a lot other functions in an organization are impacted by AI, is sales going to be left behind? Let's find that out more in the rest of this webinar. Over to you, Anil.
Thank you, Rajat. Thanks for the introduction to AI. I very much looking forward to talking about how sales is actually in a great position to benefit from AI. And as Rajat had mentioned earlier, there are three things that we see make sales to be in a great position. One is there is tremendous amount of data that is available in a typical CRM system that an organization uses. And again, the data has not traditionally been utilized to the extent that it could. We also have a lot of other sources of information through data available within the organization, including unstructured data, for example, about what is happening in the industry and the industry trends. And of course, the modern techniques that we talked about, whether it's machine learning, whether it's AI or others that are available to help sales benefit from the developments that are happening on the AI side. How will AI change sales? By the way, this is a very big question and a very important one. And sales world, this is something that will determine what they will be doing 3 to 5 years from now. If you have a sales team that you're running, you need to understand and make sure that you're ready to take advantage of it before your competition does. We believe there are three things that are pretty evident and very likely to happen. One is AI-driven process automation. The second is AI-driven sales guidance. And the third is AI-driven conversation guidance. And I will certainly go into these three. However, I should state that, the world never goes in a linear fashion. While these three things are very likely to happen in relatively soon time period, there might be other things that will change how sales happen as we use AI and we see what the other opportunities are. So let me spend a little bit of time about each one of them. And AI-driven process automation is about using intelligence to automate all the humdrum work that a salesperson has to do. So, for example, having an automatic and intelligent data capture. If there's an email that comes in, being able to capture what was the theme being said in the email, what does the language of the email mean, and putting that information into the database automatically without somebody having to do that manually. Calls and meetings. When we have a sales meeting, there is a call that typically gets scheduled as a follow-up. AI systems can actually schedule that call automatically without you having to do something about it. And then finally, generating meeting notes and action steps. We go into meetings, we take notes, figure out what the action steps are. AI systems can actually record the meeting, figure out from those meeting notes what are the action steps that have been created. So in a way, take out all the work that a person would be sitting and doing manually and just automate it, because AI-based intelligence systems can do that relatively easily and much more efficiently. On the AI-driven sales guidance, there are three pieces. One is the ability to proactively identify and prioritize new opportunities. Like AI machines and AI-based systems can go scour all the data that is out there within the organization, outside the organization, and look at opportunities of selling products and services which a sales team might not be aware of. It's able to pick up buying signals based on what has happened in the past, based on what is happening with similar accounts, based on some specific things that might have happened with that particular organization, and identify those opportunities, and of course, then be able to prioritize what are the opportunities one should be working on. The second is providing the most effective path to closure. Right? Once an opportunity has been identified, giving guidance to the salesperson about what steps they need to close that particular deal. What information do they need to share along the way, with whom, at what time? That's what the effective path to closure from an AI system comes out. And finally, providing detailed guidance for each contact. So anytime a salesperson has to go to a meeting, has to get on the phone, telling them what should they be talking about. What product should they be talking about? What should the message be? What should the product feature? Which particular product feature should they be spending more time on? And so on and so forth. So AI-driven sales guidance is all about making sure that the salesperson is as well prepared for the sales process, both in terms of knowing what to do when, and also then being able to effectively do those action steps. The third was AI-driven conversation guidance. This is where an AI-based system helps you have the right conversation. So if you're doing a demo, you're doing a customer meeting, an AI-based system can record, transcribe, and then analyze those conversations to find out what insights tell you what conversation will work and what will not. And by the way, there's already a lot of work happening in these areas. So for example, one of the interesting insights that has come is that if you speak more than 50%, if the salesperson is speaking for more than 50% of the time in a conversation, the likelihood of moving to the next step goes down. And in fact, the ideal time that they have found is about 45% time that one should be speaking. Similarly, there are certain risk mitigating words that if a person uses in a particular demo, they found that the ability to move on to the next step or the likelihood of moving on to the next step is much higher. So there are all these insights that come from looking at the various conversations and being able to analyze them. And then using that information to tailor the pitch for each opportunity. So being able to tell you as a salesperson what you should be talking about, what you should be emphasizing, and what you should not be emphasizing in a particular conversation. So you can see, these are three major changes that AI can bring to a salesperson and take them from from where they are right now to a very, very different world. Now, what would be the impact of AI-driven sales for an organization? Because this is a question that I think all of us should be asking. That yes, everybody's talking about AI. Everybody's talking about is it about cost reduction? Is it about just making sales team a little better? There is, of course, a lot of information that people talk about. What we found interesting was a paper that was published in HBR where they call scientific approach to sales effectiveness, which is essentially very similar and same thing that we are talking about AI, which is using data and analytics to figure out how you should be selling. And what they found was that the productivity for the sales rep who are in the lower quartiles went up by 200%. That's a significant increase in how much they were able to sell. Even if you took all your sales reps, including top performers, they found a 50% increase in average sales when you were using the scientific approach. And, of course, it also helped tremendously in cost reduction. So McKinsey has this estimate about 60%, 40 to 60% cost reduction in sales when they were using AI and CRM data to go through with this scientific approach. So again, what it really translates into is that as you use AI, you're going to see sales become significantly more productive for an organization than it is today. That means the organization will be able to grow faster, will be able to have more customers, and will be able to be significantly more successful in the market if it takes AI and applies it to sales functions. In fact, not only is this particular paper, since we at Absolute Data also use AI in sales, we have the results as well. We have done an A/B test for our product, which is Navic Sales AI. And in this particular case, we found that just in a 7-week period where there were 50 salespeople who were using AI-based sales guidance and 50 who were doing their sales in the traditional way, that we were able to get a 4% improvement in just 7 weeks. And by the way, this is for a company that had flat to negative sales for the last 3 years. And if we were to extrapolate this number, it means 154 million incremental sales for that particular organization. Again, showing that AI can really have a big impact. And what we did in this particular case was we used AI to recommend which accounts, contacts, and opportunities a particular salesperson should pursue in that particular week. What specific products should they focus on each of the sales calls that they were making? What message should they deliver that will motivate each buyer? Again, if you think it from a salesperson perspective, this is tremendously valuable guidance that they were getting, because in the earlier model, or for the people who were not getting the guidance, all this information had to be figured out either based on their gut and understanding, or by doing and looking through a lot of data and trying to figure out as to what they should be doing. And in this case, a salesperson didn't have to do anything; they just got the recommendation. A little bit deeper insight into the results. Out of 4%, 2% came from more sales, 2% came from increasing the pipeline, and they of course saved about 30 minutes per week per rep as well. So again, the point is that AI it's real, it has big impact on the performance of the organization, and more particularly, the sales reps become very effective. And keeping in mind, the numbers that I'm sharing here are not complete and a full usage of AI, because that hasn't happened as yet in most of the organizations, but this is just using a part of that. Now let's take a step back and think of what does AI mean for the salesperson themselves. How does it change their life? And we believe that it is actually going to transform the salesperson's life tremendously and completely. It's going to be so different from what it is today that it'll be difficult to imagine that this is how we used to do things. So let's look at how the day would proceed for a salesperson. They're going to be waking up. AI is already put together a schedule of the meeting for them, has put together what to accomplish in each of those meetings, or the targets for that day, has created a curated newsfeed based on what they need. And when I talk about curated, it's not just curated in terms of the articles or news that they should be reading, but actually using AI to create a summary of those articles, and suggest time to leave. This is something, by the way, Google does today. So when you wake up, AI provides you all the information that you need to get ready to start a productive day. And then as you start driving towards your meetings, you of course get directions, easy. But more importantly, AI helps, provides you news that is relevant to that particular meeting. And again, by the way, this is based on analysis that would have been done, where we would have seen that there are certain types of news articles or certain types of information from news that impact what will happen in that meeting. So as a salesperson, you get that information before the meeting so that you're ready to share some tidbits in the conversation that will help you in that conversation. And then, of course, you get reminded about the key information of what is the product you should be selling, the profile details of each of the people, user dislike, likes, dislikes, etc., etc. So again, while you're driving, your time is being used very productively in getting you ready. And well, I shouldn't say drives to the meeting. Maybe we have auto cars, so they're just sitting there in the car. But that's the time getting used in a much, much better way. And when you're attending the meeting gets recorded, notes are created, takeaways are captured, next steps identified, and the CRM is auto-updated. A big challenge at a lot of organizations today is the amount of time and effort that goes from a salesperson side to update the CRM, and the time and effort that goes from the senior management time to make sure that those updates happen. All of that goes away because your CRM is getting updated automatically. Then when the salesperson goes back into the office, the AI can put together actually recommendations about not only what the next action steps are, but actually create those output also. So for example, create a personalized email draft. And when I say personalized, it is personalized to the person that you're going to be sending the email to. The kind of language that you use in, the product that you mentioned there, a first draft is already ready. Of course, you go and fine-tune it before you send it. Any meetings that needed to be scheduled automatically get scheduled. AI is tracking the progress of the day. So, for example, you have things like Fitbit which you're wearing. It might be able to tell you what your energy level is. Does it make sense for you to have a cup of coffee given what I'm seeing on your metrics, and so on. And then, of course, gives you an automated feedback of the meetings that you had, what went well for you today and what did not. Finally, as the salesperson goes home and goes off to sleep, AI is still working in the background. It's analyzing the day. It's prioritizing meetings for the next day and for the other days. It's identifying any learnings from that day for that particular salesperson. It is looking at what happens with the rest of the team and is getting ready to create another great day and another productive day for the salesperson. So you can see it is so different from what it would be today. All the chores, all the things that take time outside of selling are taken away from the salesperson. Then the salesperson has most of the time focused on doing what is the most critical thing for the organization, which is selling, closing, connecting with customers, and doing all the things that are needed to make their numbers and their sales numbers go higher. What can you do about AI-driven sales today? There is a lot of things that I was just, for example, talking about, or if you read in the press about what will the world look like with AI. I think there is not a lot of confusion, I would say, but there's certainly a lot of apprehension about what's AI going to be doing. Is it completely going to replace salespeople? Is it going to have no impact? We believe that AI will actually be somewhere in the middle, which is, as I just talked about, will make the salesperson a lot more productive. However, there is already a lot of development that is taking place, particularly in the last year or two, where you can take action today itself, and you don't have to wait for these developments to take place. So option one is you can start today with the currently available solutions, and I'll talk a little bit about those. And the option, of course, is to wait for some big AI platforms that are being put together by companies like Salesforce and go through those. So let me go through a little bit more detail about option one. So again, within option two, there are two ways you can start on AI. One is use a point solution to get taste of AI. So there are a lot of companies, particularly a lot of startups, that are bringing AI in a big way to the sales function. Bigger focus of these point solutions is on automation of tasks that I talked about earlier. And the second is on providing guidance conversation. So I have some names of some of the companies there, and I'm pretty sure there are a few more coming up every day, which are essentially doing automation for a lot of tasks, are providing guidance on the conversation. And then is end-to-end sales guidance, which is, for example, the tool that we are developing at Absolute Data. In fact, have ready right now called Navic Sales AI, which is very much focused on providing one platform that provides you all the information that you need about doing the sales, all the guidance that you need, which particular account to call to, what information to provide to them, what product to sell them, as well as how to have the conversation and all and so. So these are the two options that are actually available today. And if you go to the websites of any of these companies, you will see that a lot of companies have already started using them and seeing the value out of it. In fact, there is tremendous amount of momentum in starting to use AI in a lot of organizations, particularly the organizations that are more technology friendly. The second option that I had mentioned was this AI platform piece, and that's an important one as well because, particularly Salesforce, for example, has made a big announcement about Einstein, and they're coming up with Einstein-related announcements all the time. And then similarly, IBM has its Watson platform, and we at Absolute are also developing our platform, which is essentially where you get an AI platform with AI capabilities. However, the challenge with the platforms is that you have to build applications yourself on top of it. Sometimes The challenge with some of these platforms is that they work very well with the data that is within the platforms, do not work very well with data that's outside the platform. So there are, of course, certain challenges related to the platforms. And also, I think the biggest challenge is that not all of them are available right now. So again, as you know, this is something that one has to go from an organizational point of view and think and figure out what is the right way to do it. My recommendation is that there is enough available out there, and you can start testing and getting your feet wet and seeing how AI can actually create impact through the organization. So I wanted to finish off with about 5 conclusions that we've come up with about what will happen to sales through AI, and as I said, most of it is starting to happen already. The first one, of course, is that AI is dramatically going to impact sales. Organizations and people who embrace AI fully and fast will trounce their competition. One very interesting thing about AI and in technology in general is that it tends to create a winner-take-it-all market. So the company that figures it out, well before others tends to win big. A good example of that is Amazon. Amazon figured out how to sell online before others did and figured out it better than others, and look at how much share they have of the market right now. I think this number is like 70% or something like that. So I believe AI is a similar impact for sales teams, which is sales teams that figure out how to use AI well before their competition are going to not just be the number one company in their space, it's going to be number one by the far. So it's very critical to understand that AI is going to fast, and hence, and being the person who do it well means tremendous amount of value that you can get out of that. The second is that for the salespeople, soft skills are going to become a lot more important than anything else. Today, a salesperson not only has to know how to sell well, has to know which particular accounts should they focus on, which particular accounts or conversations should they drop off because they're not going to close. We believe AI is going to take over all of that work, and the soft skills of the salespeople will become so much more important than what they are today, because that is what will be combining with the AI that the organization has built to go out there and be successful. Finally, AI is also going to create a small number of super successful salespeople. So instead of the typical 80-20 rule, 60-20 rule that you see in organizations, we believe that small number of salespeople who are going to be very effective at soft selling skills and who have and are supported by recommendations from a smart AI system are going to be able to sell significantly more than everyone else. And hence, you will have a smaller group of people who will be selling more than what the entire group is selling today. So it's, again, from a salesperson's perspective, AI is such a critical thing and such a critical skill in a way that you need to pick up, because you want to ensure that your AI that is available to you provides you all the advantages before anyone else gets those, and then you combine it with your soft skills and go and be the super successful sales people who are going to be out there. Of course, sales will become a much more engaging job because most of the mundane tasks and analytics tasks are going to be done by AI. So AI sales is going to be very much more interesting than what it is today, because the opportunities that I get to speak with salespeople, I hear a lot of frustration about all the data that they have to input, a lot of frustration about all the data they have to pull out from various systems. I think all of that is going to be very easily taken care of by AI, and hence the sales becomes a very engaging job. It becomes an exciting job, and hopefully a lot more fulfilling job, both in terms of the job satisfaction that you get and the money that you make from that. And then I think there's also a big implication for the sales organization itself. Sales enablement, which is, by the way, an area which is coming up very strongly in lots of organizations, today is about training salespeople. We believe that sales enablement will also include training AI, because the success of your salespeople is going to be depending on the AI and the people. And the way you would train AI is by providing additional and creative data into the AI system so that the AI system can learn from that data and be more useful for the sales team. So again, there's a new function, new role that will come into the sales organization that doesn't exist today, which is of what I would call an AI coach, somebody who can bring in the data, who can coach the AI and make sure that it performs better than any other AI that you have in the market. So these are kind of the 5 big conclusions that we as an organization have come up with. I'm pretty confident that as we implement AI in different organizations, as different people use AI, there will be conclusions, there will be things that will happen that we haven't thought about today. In fact, the example that comes to my mind is the example of how Amazon, for example, has been affected in their warehouses by having robots and AI technology. So if you think of a traditional warehouse tends to be organized by categories and then subcategories and the products in there. In case of Amazon, technology, they realized that the traditional organization of a warehouse didn't make sense. Traditionally the warehouse was organized in categories and subcategories because this is how humans think. If I have to look for a product, I will say, that's the category, and then I will go and look at that particular shelf and pull that product out. With a computer, with a machine, I don't need to worry about that. So what they've done is, instead of organizing the warehouse by categories and subcategories, they've organized warehouses by products that sell together. So that reduce the amount of time that a robot has to spend looking for products. I look at the market basket now and figure out based on that how my warehouse should go. So that's something that one would not have been able to figure out till you actually start doing it. And I think there are, of course, going to be learnings and changes like that in the sales organization as well. However, before we get to that, I think the time to act is now, because you have to do it before your competition does. There is already a lot of technology tools available out there, and you can start making the difference in the organization and putting yourself as well as your organization on a winning path through AI today. So that's all I had to say in this presentation. And thank you for listening, and we will now go on to the questions.
All right. Thanks, Anil. So we have got quite a few questions. So let's see how much we can cover in today, and then we can respond to the rest of the questions over an email. So the first few questions are around the options that we talked about on how do we start and different options that are there. So, people want to understand, you talked about a few options to start today, but what are the prerequisites to start, and what is the level of readiness that is required?
Yeah,
so that's the first question.
Got it. So I think the prerequisites are, I would say, 4. One is, of course, data. We do need data for any, analytical AI-based system. Again, when I say data, typically if you have a CRM system, you're 90% there already. The data might not be clean, it might not be comprehensive, but that fortunately is not a big challenge, because you can start using the data that you already have, and it gives you a pretty good insights right from the beginning, and then of course over time cleaning up the data. The second piece I would say is that is required to be successful is ensuring that you are able to build and provide the tools that help the sales team, not just the enterprise. Right? So making sure that you are focused on providing the tools to the sales team that they can use on a day-to-day basis. And for that, the ability of the sales team to work with the technology group within the organization, with the analytical groups in the organization is, again, a very important thing. I think the third, and I think the most important thing, of course, is support from the senior management teams, because this is that, as I said, is going to change the world. This is going to change how sales happen. It's going to change what salespeople are going to be doing. So support from the senior management for the changes that will happen in the organization for change management is extremely critical. And I think the fourth and most important thing is the will to be the first one to take the risk to do this and be successful. And I think that ability and the risk taking is very well required here, because I've seen traditionally many times that organizations tend to say, we'll wait and see if this works. We will adopt it after that. I think given AI creates, as I said earlier, when it makes it all markets, we need to have that will of saying that we're going to take some risks, we're going to push this through and make it happen. So I think those are the things that I would say are required for it to be successful.
Great. And there are a few questions on the data. I think that's the first point you touched upon, which is, can AI help companies with small sales teams or lesser sales data? And we even have a question which is, can it help startups which do not have a lot of internal data?
Very good question. Actually, a question that we at Absolute Data have grappled with quite a bit, because the ingoing hypothesis in AI and analytics is that you need a lot of data to make good recommendations, and I think that's something that is very true. The challenge comes in when you have a smaller team or when you have a startup. Now, the good thing about that is that you can do some analytics and some kind of recommendations relatively easily with less data. However, over time, and by the way, and then what that essentially means is you're not able to take complete advantage of what AI can do, but you start getting good at certain things. So if you're a startup, your focus probably is going to be on customer acquisition, which means the data that you need is available about publicly available or can be bought about the leads that you want to reach out to, right? So that information is available. You can bring that in. There are tools that, for example, can look at an email and do text analysis of email to figure out, how likelihood is, what's the product they're looking for, what's the likelihood of closing eventually, and so on and so forth. Those are, again, tools that can be used today. Tools about conversation analytics can be used today. In fact, even at Absolute Data, we are putting together a version of our Navic Sales AI, which takes the information that is available with any company that has more than maybe 5 salespeople, and is able to provide recommendation on a day-to-day basis just based on the data that is available. Now, again, the analytics behind that aren't as sophisticated as they would be for a larger organization with lots of data, but they're useful, they help you sell more, and they help you become more successful. So yes, I think there are things that you can start doing right now on that front as well.
Right. And I think the big thing is that AI itself can be used to generate the data, whether it's email analytics you mentioned or it's the conversation guidance. It can actually support in generating the data even for smaller organizations.
Very true.
Okay. So the next question I have is, how much investment is needed to get started with a complete solution?
AI has traditionally been a very expensive value proposition, because it needs powerful computers. It needs people who are very expensive to hire right now, computer scientists and so on. But I think the good news here is, with the cloud model in particular, you don't actually need to make a big investment, because you don't need to make a big investment in building up the infrastructure. You don't need to make a big investment in hiring a team of computer scientists and data scientists that are difficult to find. You can just leverage the cloud-based products that are available there. The investments actually, believe it or not, are less than what you would have made in your CRM systems. So it's a very commercially viable system and opportunity right now, just given what all the cloud products that are being developed. And again, you don't need to start doing everything on day one. You can start with smaller pieces and build it over time and make those incremental investments in AI. In fact, what I found very interesting is that I think the majority of companies that have invested in AI products or have bought AI products, you'll see are companies that are kind of between, are late stage startups to onwards from that point onwards. So because that's the stage where people are taking these risks and investments, and because it doesn't cost that much, they can actually do it. So that I think is a good example to see that this is not a very expensive proposition. You don't have to spend a whole lot of either money and a whole lot of time as well to get started and start seeing the results.
Great. Anil, for the next question, I'm just moving the presentation to a particular slide. I think this question is referring to this particular slide. And what it asks is, which of these tools are available in the market today?
Yeah, so I think if you look at these slides, the option 1 that we have listed is actually available today itself. So you have tools that actually can respond to email requests. You have tools that can create the conversation analytics, for example. I know of at least 3 companies that do good conversation analytics. So these tools are all, the ones that are mentioned here are all available today. Similarly, on the getting guidance to salespeople, again, that's the Dynamic Sales AI. This is a product that we built. It is available today as well. So these tools are, of course, available. The challenge, by the way, many times tends to be about getting these tools to work with each other from an integration point of view. But if you look at them individually, they are all available, and they're already starting to see a lot of momentum in how people and companies are using them. What is not available is on the platform side. I think there's a lot of development going on, a lot of chat about what the platforms will do. Einstein and now Einstein actually combining even with IBM Watson. Those are things which are not available as yet and will take some time before they're out there.
Right. And Anil, you mentioned starting in smaller pieces. And I think the follow-up question on that is, which piece would you recommend to start using first?
So I think that's a question that I think will probably depend on where you are in the organization and what you want to do. Because there are smaller pieces that you can start off with today to just test out the field. The challenge, the benefit of that is not a huge investment, doesn't mean a big change for my organization, and I can test out whether it works or not. I think the bad part of it is that the impact that it creates is not that large. So, for example, if you were to say that I get a tool that automatically captures certain information for my CRM, good tool, works well, but it doesn't create a dramatic impact on my sales productivity, right? So in this case, I'll just talk about our platform, for example. Our platform is about providing guidance to the salesperson on a day-to-day basis. And that's a tool that has an immediate impact, a very large impact on your sales, because you see a higher close rate of sales, you see higher productivity from your sales, and you see the sales effectiveness of your entire team, not just the best salespeople, go up dramatically. So that's the trade-off that as an organization you'll have to make and think of that. Do I want to pick up something that is readily, easily, with very little investments, going to take some of the or increase the effectiveness of the team, or do I want to create a bigger bang effect, which then gets noticed in the organization and builds more momentum to do more things around it across those. So you can start in both those ways.
Right. Okay. I think the next question is around IoT. So the question says, in my organization, there is much focus around IoT. And from what I observed this afternoon, will IoT give rise to AI? I believe yes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, I think it will.
Yes, it will. So I think the way I would look at this, and sorry, I know this is not the question about sales, but let me still answer the question, which is that IoT is about capturing data that comes from various sensors and various machines, right? So once that data comes in, you need to use that data to create recommendations and figure out what should be done ideally, and that is where AI comes in. So it's very similar to what we're seeing in sales and marketing. When the big data, the whole hype around big data started, it was all about collecting as much customer data as you could get. But then it did not create enough value. People were saying, we've made all these big investments into big data infrastructure. Where is the impact on the business? The impact was created once AI was being used to get value out of that data. So I believe you will see exactly the same thing happening on the machine side, where AI will be sitting on top of all the IoT data that's been collected and will make the organization, smarter, intelligent, and better.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question.
Okay. So we have a few more, so we'll answer the rest of the questions over email. So one last question for today. So do sales teams need additional training for AI products?
Do they need sales training? Do they need training? Yes. However, the amount of training is very, very limited. The good thing I think that's happened in the products that are being developed, particularly on the AI side, is that a salesperson doesn't need to worry about analytics. They don't need to worry about the data. They don't need to worry about the technology. All they need to worry about is how am I going to use the recommendations that are coming out from my system. And that, by the way, if done properly and in a user-friendly way, means there is minimal training required to use that system. And when I say training, it's usually about getting familiar with the user interface and some functionalities that you have in there. So the training required is about how to use a software product. You don't need to train salespeople about analytics, about AI, about data. None of that is required. It's just that how to use that product. The other pieces, in sales, a very critical element to keep in mind is that a lot of people are out in the field. So, there is certainly some training again required to make sure that they can use it on their phone. Our product training minimal. It takes literally 15 to 30 minutes across each of these products to learn how to use it, and you're out there using it after that.
Great questions. Thank you, everyone, for submitting those. And thank you, Anil and Rajat, for a fabulous webinar. Again, attendees will be receiving a link to the video, and thanks again.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.